Pincurchin! And Snom! And Pyukumuku, I guess. Can you tell which one's my favorite? It's Snom! This somewhat recent genre of Pokemon is totes adorbs. As in, they are so cute you just want to tote them around everywhere. And the designers must have been like, what can we do to possibly make these weird creatures cute? And the answer was clearly, to add orbs. Sorry about that one. When you get right down to it, we've got two sea creatures and a worm. But why do they look the way they do? Why are they the types that they are? Every Pokemon, no matter how simple they seem, always have something deeper hidden underneath. Or inside. So let's start by looking at a medieval English amulet of lightning. By which I mean, Pincurchin! It's just a sea urchin. Ow. It's just a sea urchin. Ow. It's just a sea urchin with a mustache. How do I hold you? Not like that. The answer, left-hand rubber glove. Look at him struggle. Ooh, he's struggling. But seriously though, who looked at this and said, hey, let's eat that? It's only toxic. And pain. Which is the opposite of today's sponsor, True Classic Teas. They approached and I was like, what? You want me to promote like regular t-shirts? Why does a t-shirt company need a YouTuber to promote? These are so soft, yet durable. I am immediately impressed. And unlike my usual teas that go all over time, or just in general on heavier set guys, with the poofy sleeves and the bacon neck, these shirts hold. As this lovely model demonstrates, using their advanced stitching technology, they are a little tighter and a little more durable in just the right areas to be extra styling and extra comfortable, whether you're heavier set or not. Yeah, premium wardrobe essentials at accessible prices so you can look good, feel good, and do some good too, for sure. Because with the proceeds, they donate over 40,000 shirts a month to communities in need. So you can do good for yourself and others by going to the link at the top of the description, trueclassictees.com/Lockston, or just using the code Lockston at checkout for 25% off your purchase, which might also include pants, jackets, other things that humans wear. I should know this. Fill out your wardrobe with the best basics. True Classic Tees. But don't put them on sea urchins, they're still fabric. Pincurchin is an electric-type sea urchin with a cute little muzzly mustache, which resembles their delicious insides, and also how they look when they are laying eggs. I've only ever eaten urchin once, but it was amazing. But it was so expensive. It's like $10 for a tiny bit of urchin on some rice. Though, it was a very fancy sushi joint too. I'm drooling thinking about it again. But like, yeah, Pincurchin, an electric sea urchin. A sea urchin with pins. Pincurchin. I guess I could explain why it's electric type and not water type, huh? Well, not water type is easy. Remember, just because it lives in the water doesn't mean it has to be water type. See all these Pokemon for examples. But also, sea urchins, despite living in the water, are not great at being in the water. They can barely move. They kinda suck at it. And also, most sea urchins would be a lot better off outside of the water. By which I mean dead. Climate change is causing their population to get way too big, and they are causing some pretty intense damage to kelp forests and other vulnerable species. There are people all over the world whose job is to just kill them en masse. Just going around and stabbing them, cracking them open to feed the other fish. Oh, what do you do for a living? Oh, I crack sea urchins in half and feed them to wildlife. It's actually a very important job for the survival of the entire ecosystem. Lovely. So now, how about the electric type? Well, many species of sea urchin are venomous. Well then why aren't you poison type, Pincurchin? Urchins keep venom in both their spines and their mouth parts, though the spines are how people get envenomed usually. And typically that's by accidentally stepping on it or trying to grab it for some reason. It's just like a cactus. You ever see a cactus and say, oh, gee willikers, that looks like touching it would be extremely painful. I'd better touch it and see how sharp it is. Except with sea urchins, it is much worse, because they are venomous and their spines are fairly brittle. So you touch one, it stabs you, injects you with venom, you pull away, you break the spine, now it's stuck in you, and these spines can keep shooting more and more venom into you for hours. This is generally considered not bueno. In most urchin species, the venom causes mild to severe paralysis and numbness to the area of injection and other spots like the lips and fingers. and the pee-pee, and this numbness can last a few hours after the poke, especially if the spines are not removed from the skin all the way, since the spines continue to inject the venom. Notably, Pincurchin's dex entry states it stores electricity in each spine. Even if one gets broken off, it still continues to emit electricity for at least 3 hours. And yeah, electricity can do that to you too. Make parts of you numb. That's a part of the paralysis status effect too. So yeah, that's totally fine. Swap the urchin's poison for electricity and it has similar effects. So make the Pokemon electric, I guess. It adds variety, makes it a little less obvious, like, ooh, a poison-type urchin, where'd they get that idea, ooh. But also, the Pokedex says it feeds on seaweed, using its teeth to scrape it off rocks, which is what most sea urchins do, actually. That's part of their whole destroying the ecosystem thing. Though, some urchins eat invertebrates and plankton to supplement their algae and kelp diet. Also, the fact that it has eyes and a mouth in the front, and thus has distinct front and back ends, and a slightly flattened body with little peats on the bottom, makes Pincurchin resemble the heart urchins, an order of sea urchins that are bilaterally symmetrical instead of having five-fold symmetry like most sea urchins. On most sea urchins, their anus is on the top middle, and their mouth is directly below it. It's like a tube or a donut with all of the organy stuff going on around it. And they can move in any direction, it's like a starfish, and that's due to them basically having feet all over their body, interspersed between their spines. Whereas with heart urchins, only one half of their body has the feet, and their mouth is significantly more to the front, with the anus much further back. Either way though, all urchins hide their mouths on the bottom, and their butts are in the air. So question, is this a little mustache, or does Pincurchin got a butt face? Hey look, we match. Also, based off its colors and its size and the shape of the spines, it looks like it's a mixture of the burrowing urchin and the purple sea urchin. Both ancient and modern indigenous peoples of California eat purple sea urchin roe raw, by the whole gonad, and it tends to be orange or yellow, just like Pincurchin's little mustache cheek puff thingies. In Japan, sea urchin, known as uni, can retail for as much as 40,000 yen per kilogram, and it too is typically served raw as sashimi or in sushi with soy sauce and wasabi. And they love it so much that they import large quantities of it from the United States, South Korea, and other places where it's fished. In fact, Japan consumes 80% of the world's production of it. 50,000 tons annually. I mean, I guess we Westerners can't say too much, since there's nothing really fancier than caviar in a Westerner's eyes. There is a particular difference, though. While it is referred to as sea urchin roe, a word that describes fish eggs, it's actually not their eggs. It's their sex organs. And boy are they tasty, with a consistency like a firm custard. But speaking of Westerners, if Japan loves sea urchins so gosh dang much, then why did they wait until Galar to make a sea urchin Pokemon? What's so special about Galar, the region based on the UK? I mean, they aren't exactly known as sea urchin eaters. Well, that is true, but the UK is still a series of islands in the ocean, and sea urchins live stinking everywhere around them all at once. So really, there's no reason not to introduce a sea urchin Pokemon here, but also, we can better answer that question as well as better answer the why is it electric type question, all with the same answer. Time travel with me to medieval England. People at this time period loved their magical amulets and such, and oftentimes, because they didn't know better, they would stumble upon a fossil of sorts and assume it had magical properties, because how else would you explain this? Clearly it's a magical amulet, and when someone would stumble upon a fossilized sea urchin, of which there were plenty here because, again, they live stinking everywhere here, do you know what one of the conclusions they came up with was? Ah, this magical amulet. This is clearly a petrified bolt of lightning. I shall use this to ward off evil spirits. Okay there, English guy. Long dead sea urchins are petrified lightning. Or petrified snake's eggs. That was another common belief, but that one's not helpful here. But yeah, a magical British sea urchin that causes numbness and paralysis, you might as well make that electric type as it is. But it's doubly good when you consider that historically, they thought petrified sea urchins were petrified lightning. and would make magical amulets out of it. That's great. And it's doubly British too, because its name and its spikiness are reminiscent of a pincushion. A typically round ball of cloth with tight stuffing that you would stick pins and needles into for safekeeping. Some of them would even be filled with emery powder to slightly sharpen the needles whenever you put them in or take them out. Pincushions like this have been around since just medieval Europe in general, but the classic tomato design that everybody knows, and that also looks a lot like Pincurchin's round yet flat body and top-heavy spikes, happened and quickly became extremely popular in Victorian England. Super perfect. But there is one more reason it needed to be in Galar. Snom needed a friend. Guys, who's gonna be Snom's friend? But question time, what the heck is Snom doing here? I mean, it's based on the jewel caterpillar, which live in and around Central America. That is not England. There were wars about this. Well, you see, jewel caterpillars already look like they are wearing a little jacket of clear slime or ice. So if you're making an ice-type caterpillar, there's no reason not to make it resemble the little Julie here. So you know how most bugs hate the cold? I mean, the closer you get to the equator, the more and bigger the bugs are, because it's warmer. The bugs are so small, they freeze so easily. So typically, they avoid the colder peaks and poles, but there are exceptions. The Gynaeophora is a genus of moths that live in mainly northern Canada, but also a bit of northern Europe, and they actually prefer the cold. I'm turning the heater on. In fact, the Arctic woolly bear moth, when in its worm state, regularly survives winters as cold as -70 degrees Celsius. And when I say regularly, I do mean regularly. Most caterpillars or worms that turn into moths and butterflies will only live 8 to 12 months total. That's all stages of their life. They're laid as an egg, they hatch as a caterpillar, they turn into a chrysalis or a cocoon, and then they become a butterfly or a moth. Boom, 8 to 12 months. Then they die. They only live through like a single winter, if that. But the Arctic woolly bear moth caterpillar, you're looking at 7 to 13 years just as a worm. That's 7 to 13 winters these guys survive. However, they do spend 80 to 90% of that time completely frozen solid in hibernation. They're only awake for 1 to 2 months out of the year in summer, so it takes them all those years to gather the same amount of nutrients needed for the metamorphosis that other caterpillars get in just half a year, especially since tundra plants are scarce and not as nutritionally dense. So, when the time comes and they thaw, they eat. And eat, and eat, and eat, and eat, and eat, and eat. Nom nom nom. Nom nom nom. That's why its name is Snom. It's snow, and it goes nom nom nom. Technically, all caterpillars do this to pack on the pounds like moi, but it's especially important for these caterpillars because not only are they stockpiling for metamorphosis, but also to survive 10 to 11 months of winter. Conveniently though, Snom makes it easy on itself. Instead of having to eat plants like the real deal, it just eats snow. Convenient, because there's a lot of it. It's like a snowball getting bigger and bigger as it rolls. The Pokedex even says the more snow it eats, the bigger and more impressive the spikes on its back grow. Fun. And then it evolves. It metamorphizes into a very mothy mommy Frosmoth. Kind of a letdown in the naming department, honestly. Frost, moth, take the T out. It's Talonflame all over again. But unlike Talonflame, even its Japanese name is still kind of meh. Mothsnow. Yeah, Mothsnow. Or is it Moth now?
877
Moth.
No!
Anyway, same deal, an Arctic moth. Though, just like Snom, it mixes in elements from other moths because they fit thematically. See, the actual Arctic woolly bear moth has the right body shape, but not the right color. But other Lamantriine moths, so the same family of moths, do resemble it more closely. The white bodies and translucent wings and the giant eyelashes or antennas. Some of them even have this greenish hue, which is precisely what Frosmoth's shiny color is resembling. And they really are gorgeous, like a delicate snowflake, a thing of beauty, which is perhaps why it has some fashionable beauty themes in its design as well. Not only the jewel and the big beautiful eyes and lashes, but the way it bundles its body resembles a big puffy scarf or a large white fur coat. I mean, literally Melanie. That's why she has a Frosmoth. They resemble each other. Though I don't think Melanie has the Ice Scales ability. That's unique to these Pokemon. Ice Scales is a really good ability, actually. The Pokemon is protected by Ice Scales, which have the damage taken from special moves. That means roughly half of all Pokemon attacks do poo-poo diddle to it. Plus, special defense is Frosmoth's second highest stat, making it have just even more resistance to them. So, just like a real moth, if you punch it, it kinda dies. Moth and butterfly wings are extremely delicate. That's why if you ever go into one of those butterfly exhibits, they tell you not to pet them, even if they land on you. The temptation, they are so fluffy, but I must not pet. Oh no! So I am sure that if their wings got hit by Dragon's Breath or a jet of water capable of cutting steel or a Psychic Blast, they would still die, but they're not really known for that. So the ability still works. Snom and Frosmoth got like ice armor. The air around them is so cold that the air itself freezes, which is enough to weaken special attacks just before they get hit by them, literally cooling them off. New question, why Galar? Well, there are plenty of moths in this family that live sorta all over the globe, so that's enough of a reason, but the more arctically inclined ones find themselves in old Viking territory. And Galar is no stranger to that. Vikings are a major part of British history, but there is also a British moth we could look at, the peppered moth. It played quite a big role in our understanding of evolution and our human impact on the environment. In short, in 1800s England, the Industrial Revolution was in full swing. Peppered moths looked proper, like peppered moths, but as the air in England was getting more and more polluted from the soot and carbon of burning coal, the moths began to change. The first all-black peppered moth was documented in 1811, and by 1864, the black moths were more common than the white ones, and by 1895, 98% of the peppered moths in Manchester were all black. And of course, Manchester was a major industrial city at the time. This change was the moths adapting to their much more polluted atmosphere. I mean, these images sort of perfectly explain what's going on here. It's industrial melanism. That's the term that they invented. And sure enough, as coal plants and coal-powered machines started falling out of use due to, well, not clean, but cleaner, more efficient methods of power production and machining being used in the 1900s, the black and peppered moths started becoming rarer and rarer again. And to link this back up with Frosmoth, its Pokédex mentions it shows no mercy to any who desecrate fields and mountains. Frosmoth is a little environmentalist. Yeah, go get him! I wonder if there will ever be a regional variant that's all black. Maybe like a Pokemon Legends Galar kind of thing? Industrial England? Yeah, that'd be cool. But not anywhere near as cool as Snom's other buddy, Pyukumuku. Look at this little butt face! This dumb little butt face! Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love this guy, but it's dumb as bricks. So dumb. Not a single thought between those cute little bunny ears. It's based mostly on the sea cucumber, which are brainless and are essentially just an ambling stomach. And some aren't even that. Some species don't even have a stomach or esophagus. They just vor food into their intestines immediately. Sea cucumbers, or more scientifically, holothurians, are marine animals with a gross, leathery, yet slimy skin. And they range in size from long-ish to long boys, and have an exoskeleton made of isolated, calcified, microscopic ossicles. Don't know why I'm Greek all of a sudden. Yeah, these things. It's a teeny tiny little, what are essentially bones, I guess. They're just below the skin and are connected by connective tissues, if you would have guessed that. But this is what causes the bumpies under the skin that make it feel and look so lumpy. Their bones and bodies being this way is a key to their coolest ability, though. Most species can essentially turn themselves into liquid to squeeze themselves into much tighter spaces than you'd imagine them being able to fit. They just loosen the collagen that forms their body wall, and once they get into that space, they can then tighten the collagen wall back up by hooking the collagen fibers back together, and then they're firm again. Just in a crevice now, all squished up. But either way, looking at them, they remind me of those, like, squishy toys that are like tubes and they're soft and squishy and they got like the Got like the hole in them. You know what I'm talking about? As I mentioned before, they are either kind of long or very long. Most species are about 10 to 30 centimeters and are noticeably longer than they are wide, just like how Pyukumuku is definitely longer than it is wide. The average size of a sea cucumber makes our little cutie Pyukumuku seem long, at 1 foot long, right? Well, yeah, until you look at the longest species of cucumber, the Synapta maculata, which can get up to 3 feet long and are rarely shorter than 2 feet. It's just like, hey, I'm a sea cucumber. Hey, I'm your bigger sea cucumber cousin. I don't know what I'm doing there. I don't know what that's about. Fun fact, since sea cucumbers are echidnoderms, they have 5-fold symmetry along their bodies, just like most starfish and sea urchins. But instead of them being face down, up, they're essentially lying on their bellies like chordates, which is the fancy word for animals like humans, snakes, and fish and stuff that have bilateral symmetry, where if you cut them down the center, both sides are mostly mirrored. But we put belly in those huge quotes there because that's not their belly. It's their side. They lay on their side, because like how a starfish and a sea urchin are like symmetrical from the top down, so too are sea cucumbers. They just lie down. They're cute and lazy and got a booty. And this being on their sideness that they are makes them sort of like fake chordates. It's as if they had bilateral symmetry, but technically they got the 5-fold, but the 5 is not at the top like starfish and urchins, it's on the side because they're sideways. And they look kind of flat and triangular because gravity is making them squish. They're really weird, okay? They're 5 radii, which extend from the mouth to the anus, just like sea urchins, on which the tube feet are attached. See? 5. This is probably a part of why Pyukumuku's mouth is a little 5-pointed star shape, by the way, to allude to both the 5-fold symmetry and also because it makes it look like a cute little butt. And we all know how Japanese culture, and Game Freak by extension, love their cute little animal butts. It's like a whole genre of cute animal merchandise. I have a whole video about this. Check it out here. Come to think of it, this genre of Pokemon is pretty perfect for merchandise. Cheap and simple to manufacture thanks to its simple shape, its super squishy plush, or its little small standee, and yet it's still so very cute. Like this. Look at this boy. New, just born. Soft, squishy, very, very cute. Get them now at noggin.net. Woo! But back to the real boys. Most sea cucumbers move around with little tube feet known as podia, though those in the order Apododia, which as you can guess means no feet, instead move by contracting their muscles and burrow into the ground like worms. Pyukumuku doesn't appear to have any tube feet, but they still move around without wriggling like a worm. So I think they just put the pokies that you'd think are feet onto its back and called it a day. Which isn't very sea cucumber-like, but what it is like is Wawaxia, a group of marine soft-body animals that lived during the early and middle Cambrian period. They too were really, really weird, and they had hard plates and spikes in 2 rows, just like Pyukumuku. And they lived so long ago that the most we can say about their pedigree is that they were for sure animals, and that they were probably mollusks, but like, maybe they were a precursor to worms instead? We really don't know. But a creature from the modern day that Pyukumuku is sort of like is another sea creature, a nudibranch known as a sea bunny. Oh my gosh, it's cute! It's got little ears, and it's got a little bunny tail, just like Pyukumuku, and that's not all. Despite being mono water type, its unique signature move is poison type, Purify, which both cures a target Pokemon of any non-volatile status conditions and heals them, which very well could be a reference to sea bunnies, who scientists have been studying with great interest because the sponges that sea bunnies eat are highly toxic, but they are able to almost purify the toxins when they consume them, and these toxins then can hopefully someday be used for cancer treatments. Very cool. And it links us right back to sea cucumbers, who find themselves common in traditional Eastern medicine. Yes, the same Eastern medicine that thinks rhino horns can be used to detox and cool the blood, whatever that means, but it's been this way for a long time. The first recorded example of sea cucumber trade was between the inhabitants of Australia and their Asian neighbors in the 18th century, and they still are today. But unlike 90% of that sort of medicine, there is some research happening on sea cucumbers too. Turns out, like the sea bunny, some of the compounds they make in their bodies could very well help treat cancer as well. Helps purify it. It could even be used to reduce brain scarring from injuries or surgery, or even just scarring of soft tissues in general. Perhaps like Pyukumuku's skin slime being used to help with sunburns, according to the Pokedex. It is somewhat medicinal. So good job, Pyukumuku, you really helped. But come to think of it, what's with your name? I get the Kumuku, it's like cucumber and mucus, and it's got Hawaiian-sounding vibes. But the oh god, ew! Innards Out is Pyukumuku's signature ability. When it gets knocked out, it pukes its insides out and punches whomever knocked it out with its insides. And these inner organs resemble a hand, allowing it to literally punch and peace sign, and even give you the bird if it really wanted. But what's it based on? Sea cucumbers don't have hands, not even on the inside. But what they do have is this exact ability. You see, some sea cucumbers have what are known as Cuvierian tubules, which are a part of their respiratory system, so like a lung and a gill hybrid that also kind of isn't. But they also have this unique ability. They can shoot them out through their anus. See, that's why I call Pyukumuku a butt face. It shoots its innards from that one in front. That's its butt, which, unlike real sea cucumbers, isn't the same thing as its mouth. But why would the sea cucumber want to literally cough up a lung with its butt? Well, because these organs lengthen when they come into contact with seawater and become adhesive when they encounter objects. So they function as an excellent defense against potential predators. The tubules can elongate by up to 20 times their original length, and they're really strong and can get a really firm grip in under 10 seconds. It's like a baby hand, or it's like, oh, I got so scared I pooped out one of my lungs. Oh! Though, unlike Pyukumuku, who sucks them back up, the real sea cucumbers, they detach these tubules, which does allow them to get away from whatever's attacking them. Think of it like a lizard's tail. They even grow back in 2 to 5 weeks. And sure, it kind of sucks that it's harder to breathe during that time, but it's better than dying. And this isn't the only secret sea cucumbers have in there. Most species have mouth tentacles that they can extend a little bit to grab things and pull into their mouths, like little hands. So Pyukumuku kind of combines these two abilities into one extra fancy one. The fact that a sea cucumber mouth with its mouth tentacles pulled all the way in kind of looks like a anus is definitely no coincidence either. Nice. And I bet that when Game Freak introduced Pyukumuku in Pokemon Sun and Moon, they were a bit surprised at just how popular such a little guy would become. Really popular for quite some time. And thus, a sort of new genre of Pokemon was born. So, come Sword and Shield, we got the other two, Snom and Pincurchin. Just cute little roundies, cute little bleepity-doos. Teeny tiny deedly little orblals with pain protrusion parts. Little twinkie. Oh, I wish we had another new one in Scarlet and Violet, but there's always next gen. So what do you think of these three dudos? Too simple? Too cute? Too perfect? Let me know down below. And also, check out this other way cool sea creature Pokemon. Clawitzer references a French-Brazilian war about lobsters that almost nobody knows about. So click here to learn all about that, and until next time, never stop using your noggin.